Today on the Ask BP podcast, we're talking about what would I do if I were to start over with just 30 grand. Let's get started.
You're listening to another BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast, where you'll hear short, direct answers to your biggest real estate questions. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forums by using hashtag AskBP. And don't forget to pick up your copy of The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing and other great content when you sign up for your free account at BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
Hey, what is going on, everyone? My name is Brandon, and you are listening to the Ask BP podcast here on the BiggerPockets social network. Today's question comes from Alternaut from New York. At least that's Alternaut is the Twitter name. And if you have a Twitter question, you can always tweet me at @BrandonAtBP. So it's the @BrandonAtBP. And send your questions for the Ask BP podcast there. Just make sure you use hashtag AskBP. But today's Twitter Ask BP question comes from Alternaut from New York, who asked, with what you know now and forced to start over, what would you do with $30,000? I love that question because that is where a lot of investors are at today. Maybe you're in that exact spot. Maybe you can come up with 30 grand you've saved, which is an awesome thing to do. You know, like being able to save money like that is pretty fantastic. So I want to start out by saying, if that is you, if you are in that position, congratulations on at least doing that. That says a lot about you because I know most America cannot save any money whatsoever. So first of all, good job on that. So what would I do, knowing what I know today, to start over with 30 grand to build my empire again? All right, so that question has to start with the end in mind. In other words, what is my goal? What am I trying to get to? For example, if I had $30,000, what do I want to do? Do I want to quit my job? Is that my goal? Is my goal to retire in 20 years? Is my goal to retire in 50 years? Is my goal just to make $1 million? What is my goal? So I need to look at that first and figure out what I'm going to do. So let me cover a few of those topics. First of all, let's just say my goal is to quit my job this year. Like now, I'm tired, I want out. Well, I'm not going to get that with rental properties using 30 grand, or at least probably not. What I'm going to probably end up doing is flipping houses. Now, 30 grand is a good amount to start flipping houses with, depending on where you live. Now, if you're in LA trying to flip houses or San Francisco, 30 grand isn't going to get you that much, but it is enough skin in the game that you might get a hard money lender or a private money lender to fund your flip. So if you're going to get into flipping houses, I'd probably turn that $30,000, into a down payment using a hard money lender to flip a house. Now, you have to be careful when you're flipping houses. If it's your first one especially, a lot of people lose money on their first flip. So I would make sure that the deal is solid and perfect. And what I might actually do, I think I'd like the idea of this. I would probably find a partner and then work with that partner. I'd find a partner who is extremely experienced with flipping. I would connect with a flipper in my area. Perhaps you're using biggerpockets.com/meet, MEET, and you can find people in your area. I'd connect with an experienced investor, an experienced flipper, and say, hey, let's work on one together. And I would learn with them. I'd use my money, their experience, and the first one we'd split 50-50. That's probably what I ended up doing with my 30 grand if I was going to start over in flipping. Now, knowing what I know today, I probably wouldn't have to partner necessarily with that 30 grand. But I might just for the heck of it. There's things that I'm good at and things I'm not. I'm not that good at managing contractors. So I might partner with somebody anyway just to help me manage the contractors. Or I might hire a project manager for that role. But anyway, if I'm going to go flipping, that is probably what I do with the 30 grand. If I wanted to do a rental property, let's say I wanted to retire in 10 years from now, or 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 30 grand is a respectable amount depending on where you live. Now, if you live in an area, again, like LA or San Francisco, Seattle, New York, it might be difficult for 30 grand to get you much. Typically, when I think of 30 grand, I think of it like this. You're going to need a little bit of money for closing costs. You're going to need a little bit of money probably for rehab. Even if you buy a project that's completely ready to go, you're going to need some money for rehab. And you're going to need the down payment. Now, if you're going a typical conventional mortgage, you're going to need 20% down. So in my opinion, 30 grand will likely get you around $100,000 property with a few $1,000s for repairs and a few thousand in closing costs and a few thousand for reserves. In the end of the day, 20 for the down payment and 10 for whatever else. You're probably looking at about $100,000 property. Now, if you're on one of the coasts and you can't find a $100,000 property as a rental property and doesn't make sense, you may have to go inward to like a turnkey company. I might look into that maybe. Or maybe you want to, invest with a partner. Maybe they can come up with some money as well. You can join forces to buy a good property. I always say that within a 2-hour drive of every single location in America, you can find low-priced properties, probably in the $100,000 range. You just might have to go outside of the city a little ways to find it. So I might look there. If I was going to do rental properties, I might go that route. But most likely what I would do, knowing what I know today, is I would use something I call the BRRRR strategy. BRRRR. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I'll say it again. You buy, you rehab it, you rent it out, you refinance, and you repeat. Let me give an example of what I mean by that. I'm actually working on one right now. So I bought a property for $70,000. That's what I got under contract for $70,000. It's a single family house in a great location. And I bought it for, again, $70,000. I used probably actually, but at the end of the day, I'll probably have 30 grand of my own dollars into this deal. Maybe not quite that, maybe in the low 20s. But anyway, I'll probably have that into the deal of my own money. I used a private lender, an individual I met on BiggerPockets. I used a private lender to fund the deal. And then I covered the rehab budget of it. And so we ended up working it that way. So I bought it for 70, put roughly, probably 30,000 or so into it. I've got about $100,000 into the deal at this point. And now I rented it out. Actually, they moved in last week. The house is beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's finished. It's done. And we're just getting the final paperwork wrapped up now, but everything's great. And now it's worth, here's the beauty. It is now worth somewhere around $150,000. And so because I bought a property that needed a lot of work and I rehabbed it. So now I'm going to go to a bank, most likely, and I'm going to go take this property to a bank and say, look, I've got a deal. I've got this house worth $150,000. I only owe $100,000. Can I get a $100,000 loan? And because I have so much equity in it, they'll most likely give me the $100,000 loan. And so I'll be able to get all of my money back, and I'll be able to pay off the private lender. And I'll have a cash flowing property, not a huge cash flowing property, but it provides a little bit of cash flow. And I have about $50,000 of equity in a great location that is going to, at least I hope, is going to appreciate. And so I covered a lot of bases, and I have my $30,000 back. I can go out and do it again and again, and I could do 2 of those a year for the next 5 years, and I'll have 10 properties at that point. I can start selling them off 2 a year after that point. I'll be selling them off, making 50 grand a piece, and in 5 years from now, I'd be at 6 figures a year just selling 2 properties, buying 2, selling 2. And so I might go that route personally, knowing what I know now. So, and then finally, the fourth thing I wanted to touch on, the fourth thing you may want to look into if you have 30 grand to start, is the idea of house hacking. That is, 30,000 would pay quite a bit of a down payment if you're using an FHA loan. FHA allows you to get a mortgage for just 3.5% down. So the great part is you can go find, let's say, a $100,000 property requires $3,500 out of pocket. Now, the beauty of that is you can buy a single family house or a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. There's even a loan called a 203K loan, which allows you to wrap in the repair costs into that. And so you're looking at only 3.5% down of the entire repairs plus purchase price. You can get the seller to pay a bunch of your closing costs, and at the end of the day, you can get a pretty awesome deal for very little money out of pocket. So if I was brand new, just starting, that might be the avenue I would take. It's a good way to kind of get some training, learn how to become an investor, learn how to manage a rehab, learn how to manage tenants, all while using little money out of pocket and with a little bit less risk. So hopefully that helps knowing what I would do with $30,000. I'd love to know what you would do with $30,000. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment here on the YouTube channel and give me a thumbs up, because that would be awesome. Let me know what you would do with the $30,000. If you're listening to this on iTunes or on BiggerPockets, make sure you leave a comment below on the show notes page. You can find that at biggerpockets.com/askbp, followed by the session number, or whatever episode this is. But just go to Ask BP. You should be able to find it there. And make sure you, if you're listening on iTunes, take a minute today to rate, review, and click that subscribe button. That helps more than anything else in the world. So I would love if you did that for me. Let's get out of here. But before we do, I want to read today's success quote of the day. And today's quote comes from Harriet Tubman, who said, "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world." Thanks, Harriet Tubman. And let's get out of here. Remember, in pursuit of your dreams, don't just learn, but take action. For the Ask BP podcast, I'm Brandon, signing off.
You've just heard another episode of the BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forum by using hashtag AskBP. And for more incredible real estate investing tools and education, including a free download of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, head over to BiggerPockets.com and sign up for your free account today. We'll see you on the next show.